So here I am coming to you from Floyd Lamb State Park. I hope you guys like the view. Floyd Lamb State Park is located in northwestern Las Vegas, Nevada. As you can see, it's a nice, cool day, cloudy day. It's a family environment. So for those who've never been here to Las Vegas, I'd recommend taking a look at Floyd Lamb State Park. Beautiful place. So they call me B-Stock Americano. B-Stock for being and living in Cebu. And Americano, obviously I'm not Filipino, so you can tell. And information that I want to go over on this channel is information about those living in the Philippines, from visa, what to do when you're living there, the ways that I did it that some people follow, and information that I can pass on to those who've never done this before. So what I want to go over today is what we would call, and I refer to as the no cost, no extension 1-year visa. And this is eligible to be offered to expats married to a Filipina or a Filipino. It's called a Balik Bayan visa. And there's some catches to this visa. It's offered to those who are married. It's offered to those who have not been in the country for over a year. And it's also eligible to be issued and offered to children of that family. So the first requirement is for Filipino citizens using their U.S. passport. They need to present their dual citizenship ID certificate and a valid Filipino passport. Former Filipino citizens need to present a copy of their Filipino birth certificate or a copy of an old Filipino passport. Foreign spouses traveling with the Balik Bayan must present a copy of their marriage certificate as a proof of affiliation. Children, regardless of age, before they turn 18, obviously, traveling with the Balik Bayan must also present proof. Passports must be valid for 6 months. Now let me explain a little bit of information about this. This is kind of interesting. So myself, I moved to the Philippines. I thought about it in 2016. And then come January of 2017, I got on a plane, and that was a process in itself. I went from Las Vegas to LAX to had a delay in Taiwan, and then I went to Cebu. Beautiful place. I thought about the Philippines, and that was just the way I was going to do it. So I ended up going, and I arrived in the Philippines. Initially, I was given a 30-day visa. Americans, we get that automatic 30-day visa, no questions asked, as long as you're not there for trouble and you have a right to travel. The difference with me and many others that may not be aware of this, and I was told this a long time ago, and I put it to use. So within the first month I was living in the Philippines, I wanted to stay longer. That was the place for me. Most people don't realize what they're up against until they actually get there. And for me, day one, it was straight to work. And what I mean by that, I didn't work in the Philippines. My wife ran a tutorial center in Cebu. So I volunteered. It's what put me there. And additionally, that's how I learned Bisaya. So with that being said, about a month into my trip, decided, okay, I want to stay longer. So booked a round trip ticket from Cebu to Singapore. And during that trip to Singapore, we also went to Malaysia. So from Singapore to Malaysia, Malaysia to Singapore, and Singapore back to Cebu. The coolest part is I saw a lot of things, had a lot of fun. But I was more excited because it was important to me to get that visa. So when we got back to Cebu, and keep in mind I was a little nervous. What I've learned, it was at the discretion of the immigration officer. It was at the discretion of who I was dealing with. And so as I got back to the Philippines, my wife and we went through the Filipino line. My wife presented the marriage license, and through the whole process, I kept my mouth shut. I let my wife do the talking. And we showed proof that we were married. My wife presented her passport. I presented my passport. And at that time, my wife had already changed her name. So it showed proof of a bona fide marriage. And she also brought other documents such as her teaching license and other things that would help us along the way. So when we got to the immigration officer, she took a look at my passport, took a look at the documents, and she stamped Balik Bayan visa. And I was like, awesome. Immigration officer writes on there, good for 1 year. From what I understand, this particular visa, and as I mentioned earlier, is at the discretion of the immigration officer that's present. The immigration officer does not have to approve it. So for some of those expats out there who have that sense of maybe entitlement, or you feel the world owes you something, well, when you go to the Philippines, all that goes away. You kind of just got to settle in. So going forward, started my journey. And at that point, the Balik Bayan visa was presented to me. But there are some conditions to that Balik Bayan visa. You're married. You're with your spouse. Your spouse technically is your sponsor. So she becomes responsible for you. And you become responsible for your actions. Though you cannot work. You cannot make money. You can't do anything that constitutes employment. Volunteering is something different, but constitutes employment, you cannot get paid. That's a whole different area when it comes to visas. So today, that's what I wanted to present to you. It's the Balik Bayan visa. And pretty easy process. It can be removed. It can be taken away from you. It can be canceled at any given time. And one thing I do recommend, most expats may not agree or disagree to it, when you're doing things around the Philippines and you're on a limited visa, carry your documents with you. Because at any given time, you can be asked for proof of citizenship. You can be asked for proof of residency. If a neighbor in the area feels you stayed too long in the Philippines, they have every right to report you to the Bureau of Immigration. And keep that in mind. They will respond if they feel they have an undesirable or someone who's been in the country longer, especially if you make yourself known and you're around in public. I hope that information is very helpful. It varies, and I hope it is helpful to those who seek information from it.